Hi everyone, and welcome to this video on how to back up your WordPress website. In it, we're just going to cover how you actually need to do the backups and what you actually need to back up. So to start, let's take a look at what you actually need to back up. Your WordPress website is made up of two components. You've got your website files that reside on the web hosting server where your website is hosted, and also your database files as well. And your database is separate from your front end web server. So there's two components, and both of them need to be backed up. The website files are responsible for WordPress core installation, WordPress plugins, WordPress themes, images and files, and some of the other bits and pieces you can see on the screen there. And the database is things like the data in your pages, the data of your blog posts, any comments, and also user data, so usernames and passwords and things like that. So both of them need to be backed up. But what I see a fairly common thing is that someone will just back up the database and not worry about the other things. So we're going to take a look at how to back up both. So the first thing we're going to cover is an automatic backup using a plugin. Backing up using a plugin is by far the most straightforward and simplest way of backing up your WordPress site. And it's definitely the one I would recommend pretty much for everyone, just because it's much simpler and much quicker, and you can schedule backups so you can kind of forget about it to an extent. But there are a couple of watch outs that I would just like to cover. Now, the first thing is finding a plugin. Now, I'm not going to recommend any just because I'm not an authority on it, but there's lots of websites out there that will give you some advice on which ones to use. Personally, I'm using this one here. It's called Updraft Plus. Now, this is a really popular one, probably one after Jetpack, probably the most popular one that's used, and it's free. So personally, I find it really good, but again, I would recommend doing a bit of research on plugins just to see. Now, this particular one, like I say, is free. There is a premium version that you don't need to use, but what the premium version gives you is access to things like their premium support and access to things like incremental backups, which is just when you back up files that have changed. Don't worry too much about it for now. So here are the things to watch out for if you're using a plugin to backup. First thing, going back to our slide on what you actually need to back up, make sure your backup plugin backs up both your website files and your database. That's really important because there are ones out there that will just do your database. Second thing is where you actually save that backup to. Now, I like Updraft Plus because I can save it to my Dropbox, and you can save it to loads of different cloud storage devices or your local machine. What's really important is that you don't save it on the same onto your web space where your website files are hosted. And the reason is because if your website is compromised or hacked, that backup is useless because it might get deleted, it might be compromised. That's a really important thing. So if we have a look at sort of on Updraft Plus, for example, I can put it in Updraft Vault, which is a premium thing you'd have to pay for. FTP, in this situation, I wouldn't use that because that would back it up to my website space. But then we've got some of the other cloud storage solutions, so things like Dropbox, Azure, Amazon, Google Cloud, so Google Drive as well. Most people have one of these solutions with some space. And if we have a quick look in my Dropbox, I did a backup earlier, we can just see Updraft Plus, and it's backed up all my data. So it's done my database, it's done others, which is just other files, plugins, themes, uploads, and you can choose all that in the settings. I won't go through that as I'm keeping the information just on general plugin advice. But like we can see here, database is done, and my other web files are done, and it's done to a cloud storage. Very useful. One other thing to be careful of here is although I've got that on a nice bit of cloud storage, that's just my website there, if my website was compromised, and we always go on the worst case scenario, which is that someone brute forces or somehow accesses your admin account, they would be able to delete my backups from here because this is the connection here with Dropbox. They've got the option to delete. So even though you've got it in that cloud storage, I would still always recommend every now and again going in and just downloading those backups to your local machine where it's a bit safer. General rule of thumb with backups is to have them in a few locations anyway, just for that sort of reason. So that's another consideration with those two. Apart from that, generally speaking, I could set up a schedule for this, and it would automatically do it. Always check with your plugin to make sure that there are things in place like alerts set up if you run out of space or anything like that. And again, every now and again, just go in and just make sure the plugin's doing what it should be doing. Okay, so even though that's the easiest way, I'm still going to talk about manual backups now. And I would always recommend doing a manual backup of WordPress every so often, just because you never know if something's gone wrong with your other one. Um, it's always just a good idea to do a manual backup. So I'm going to cover how to get those database files and how to get those website files. And the next topic we're going to cover is getting those website files. Okay, so we've looked at plugins and how to use them to backup, but if you want to do a manual backup, like I said, I'd recommend doing these every so often. Then the first thing we need to do is get hold of those website files. And in order to do that, we need to connect to the server using FTP or SFTP, so being normal file transfer protocol or secure file transfer protocol, and download those files to your local machine. So I'm going to download the website files of my example website just to the laptop I'm working on at the moment. Now I'm using a WordPress hosting package with FastHost. If you're just using a normal web hosting package, you can find the FTP details in the package overview. Or if you're with another provider, then they'll be able to provide those FTP details. But we will use this one here. So this is my website here, fhtesting.co.uk. I'm going to use a program called FileZilla to do this, which is just this program here. It's very simply what we're doing is connecting to the web server, and the files on the web server are going to be displayed here, and we're just going to transfer them to my PC or my laptop, which is just this side here. So let's take a look. So it's under advanced options, the connection settings, and here we can see SSH or SFTP. So I need to use these details to connect to that server. So if we go into our site manager, now I have cheated a little bit here and pre-filled in some of this. So my host, I'm using sftp.fhtesting.co.uk. Protocol is SFTP, and I'm using, this is the host address here. This is the one you'll need here on this page. Let's just close that for a second. So that's the details you'll need to connect to SFTP here. And then we've got ask for a password as login type and user. We get that detail from here. If we click this button, it's going to give us some temporary credentials. So what that is just for security. This password will refresh either when you click that button again or after 48 hours, whichever sooner really. So we've got that detail. So let's just grab that password. Now the username usually stays consistent, but always double check that anyway. And that's 2516362. Yeah, that's right. So the user's there. So if we're just going to click connect here and the password, with any luck, this should let me in. So you get as well an unknown host key. That's fine as long as you're connecting to either that IP address there or the SFTP host address. They both go to the same place, so you can use either. So now we should see the web server files here. So here we go. I'm logged into my files on the web server and I can see all my WordPress files here. So my WP admin content includes all of the PHP files. So that is all our website files. Now, you don't have to do what I'm about to do. This is a little bit overkill. I'm going to back up my entire htdocs folder, and that is just going to back up everything. So it's going to do my htaccess files, my all my sort of details to connect to the database, things like that. You can, if you just want to keep some of your pictures or theme details and things, you can just back up some of the folders. But generally speaking, I would recommend just doing a full backup of your htdocs folder every now and again. It's just good practice, I find, but that's just personal opinion, really. So all I'm going to do is click and drag it over to this side here. Now, the file transfer will take quite a long time because WordPress is built of many smaller files. So I'm not going to sit here and make you watch it. As you'll see down here, there's going to be a lot of files transferring. But once that's finished and once you let that finish, you're going to have a full backup of all your website files safely located on your local machine. And again, I would recommend just maybe uploading that to some cloud storage or something, secure cloud storage, obviously. But yeah, and then that's the backups done for the website files. Now, next thing I'm going to do is connect to my database and make a backup of that too. In this section, I'm just going to show you how to connect to that MySQL database using PHP and download a backup for your database. So again, I'm using the fastest WordPress hosting package here for fhtesting.co.uk. But if you're with another provider, they'll provide these details. Or if you're with Fasthost and you're just using a standard web hosting package, we've also got a guide on how to access PHP as well. So in the overview screen here for my package, I'm just going to go to advanced options and it says here the MySQL database details. So you can connect using SSH, which we're definitely not going to do, or PHP which is a lot easier. So if we open that up in a new tab, it's going to be a few bits of information we're going to need here. So firstly, it's got the host IP. So that's important. In this, we can see the server choice is here. So we need to look for that IP here. And I know it's down the bottom somewhere. And it was 94.7, I think. So we're going to select that one. We'll just double check that. Yeah. And then if we click on temporary MySQL credentials here, it's going to give us our username. And our password here, which I will just copy. And again, just worth noting quickly that those are only valid for 48 hours. So yeah, if you don't use it within that time, they'll be invalid. Or again, if you don't save those credentials. One other thing that might be worth noting is I've just closed that. If I click that again, I'm going to get a different password. The username is usually persistent, but the password will change. If you click that again, you're going to need to wait 10 minutes before the new password actually works. Okay, so don't worry too much. If you accidentally close that, open it again and it doesn't work, that's why. Just give it 10 minutes and it'll be fine. It's just because the temporary password will need to change on the back end too. So we're logged in here to our the PHP for our WordPress database. So as we can see here, we've got the information schema, which we can ignore. And if we just click on our database here, we've got all of our database tables here. You don't really need to worry about any of this stuff. It's just worth showing you. And this is going to be all the data. So you can kind of see what's on there. There's like comments, comment data, options, post meta, post. So these is a lot of the sort of the page data, the page information and content. So to back it up, what we're going to do is go to export, and we're going to do just a quick one, format SQL, go, and we're just going to do that. We're going to save the file though, because we don't want to actually open it with anything. So if you do get a prompt, you want to save the file. And it's actually probably gone into my downloads. So there we go. So we've got our file, we got our, you show up in your downloads, and if I open the file location there, we should just see it in my folders. It's just on my other screen at the moment. I'm just going to bring it over. So if I just bring that over there, we can see that that .sql file is my database backup, and that's really all there's to it. So now all I'm just going to, I would normally just put that with my other, where I downloaded my HT docs to, and just to keep it all together. Would also rename it as well, just so it's got a little bit of a, so you know when it was the actual backup from, so just call it backup and then the date or something like that. But that really is all there is to it. And that's how you back up your WordPress database and website. Hopefully that's helpful, but that's the end of the video for now. At the end of the day, our support teams are always around to ask questions too. We are limited in support for WordPress, obviously, because it's a third-party product, but we will always do our best to try and support you. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye for now.